What's up, guys? It's me again. Yes, I know. You're so happy to see me. I know. It's another week of college football. Guys, the applause. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. Thank you guys for joining me here today. I am DDP of the Dallas Prospect, and I'm ready to talk a little bit of college football here because we had another eventful week in college football. Now, the AP rankings just dropped. What's up, Gle in the house? The new AP rankings just dropped literally minutes before I went live here. And it looks like the top 5 remains the same, which I'm a little surprised by, but we're not going to worry about those right now. It's week 3. Frankly, I don't care that much about where teams are ranked for the most part because I typically don't worry about rankings until we reach at least the first few, or at least probably the week 5, week 6 range. The intro is working. Yeah. I don't think the music played with it, but the countdown worked and rolled straight into the show, so that's something at least. But let's dive into the first game here. Did Texas win? I didn't watch. Texas did win, and it was actually a pretty good statement win for them, but we'll get into that in a sec. So the two main games I want to focus on, of course, Oklahoma at Iowa State, and then I'll get to the Texas-USC matchup as well. I normally would have also talked about West Virginia, but it looks like they had a bye week this week. So as a result, the dark horse contender I have for the Big 12 this year is not really going to be featured in this episode other than to say, still keep an eye out for them. Shout out Jesse Ortiz, what's up? So Oklahoma had a lot coming into this game that they had to make up for. Their embarrassing loss last year in Norman with Baker Mayfield at quarterback, mind you. They lose last year 38-31 in Norman versus a feisty Iowa State team. And frankly, that was probably for Oklahoma the most maddening loss of last season. Now, I know obviously you could say the Rose Bowl because they had a big lead and that was the college football playoff. But at least that was a very good team that you were going up against. Now, I think Iowa State was a sneaky good team last year, but they didn't have near the caliber of athletes on the field as Oklahoma did, and OU, Adam Proctor, West Virginia postponed due to hurricane. That's right. I don't know why that slipped my mind. But Iowa State doesn't have near the caliber of athletes that Oklahoma does. I just think that they're, frankly, better coached from what I've seen. Honcho Sacramento Cowboy, what's up, DDP? What's up? Lawton, Oklahoma's where you're from. Nice, man. I'm from Norman. But Oklahoma comes into this game. It's a revenge game for them. And early on, they move. I mean, first of all, what Kyler Murray is doing is really impressive. I saw a stat lined up. I think it was at the end of the game where through the first 3 games this year for Kyler Murray compared to Baker Mayfield's Heisman campaign last year, it's like 1 yard of total difference between them. Here, I got it pulled up here on my screen. You can't see it. So total offense for Oklahoma through the first 3 weeks. Last year was 1,033 yards. This year with Murray, it's 1,032 yards. And the number of TDs responsible for, both guys are responsible for 10 touchdowns. And I know that there was some hoopla kicked up by, I want to say it was Matt Miller, an NFL scout. I think he's with I'm drawing a blank on who he's with these days. But he threw out some vague thing just to kick up attention where he basically says something to the effect of, I texted a scout, and an anonymous scout, and asked, should Kyler Murray's success right now worry you that Baker might just be a system QB? And he claimed that the scout's response was, I'd be shitting bricks right now, which, oh, okay, guys, like, I don't know what you want to say. Of course, there's some degree of that, but you're completely ignoring your own eyeball test through what you've seen of Baker and the preseason. I think Baker needs probably a year to groom at the NFL level, and it's still no guarantee he'll be a success, but it's ridiculous to just throw that out there because how many Big 12 quarterbacks in general have come out and been beastly? I mean, damn, man. Mahomes looks like he will be. Right now looks like he'll be the best freaking Big 12 quarterback of the last, I don't even know how long. So he looks legit. He looks like the truth for sure. And it's just funny that he came out of Tech, who of all the Big 12 schools that have kind of that stigma, I would say Tech has the biggest one. But let me get back to the game here. So OU goes in, 2 aims, and they win 37-27. Kyler Murray continues to ball, 21 of 29, 348 yards, 12 yards on average, 3 touchdowns, no picks, sacked once. It was late in the game. It came at a little bit of a critical moment as well, but at the same time, they were still stayed in field goal range and were able to push the lead to 10. Then they pick off Zeb Noland, to seal the game there. But some of the highlights here, aside from what I already mentioned for Kyler Murray throwing the ball, Kyler also led the team in rushing, 15 rushes for 77 yards. It's 5 an average, only a long of 15. So I'm a little concerned with him leading the team in rushing as well, because he's not a very big dude. I swear that dude looks like he's probably 5'8" if he's standing on a bucket. But man, he can sling it and he's got speed. So the big thing for him thus far is I think he's done an excellent job avoiding big hits. And for his size, that's critical, because I feel like I got scared for Baker sometimes taking big hits in the last couple of years. And man, Kyler Murray is a solid 3 or 4 inches shorter than Baker, it looks like, when they're standing side to side. But dude can sling it, and he's got some accuracy. Trey Sermon having to take over now that Rodney Anderson is out for the year. He goes 13 carries for 74 yards with a touchdown, a long of 22. I'm a little concerned about the OU run game now. I said that even last week, that I felt like the running offense was so critical to OU's success after the first few weeks of last season. And it was when Anderson emerged in that Kansas State game last year that Oklahoma turned it around, and suddenly Baker went from having to be the whole show to just just being a solid guy who then had a little bit of the weight taken off his shoulders, and it allowed him to shine more. Adam Proctor, how's the Oklahoma running back that got hurt? Yeah, Rodney Anderson, he's out for the year with, it sounds like, an ACL tear. So unfortunate for him, because he's had season-ending injuries in 3 of the last 4 years. Frankly, it's a shame. He's a redshirt junior. He probably should have gone pro this past offseason, but he wanted to come back and try for a national title, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. He's got, I guess, if he wants one more chance to come back, but God, imagine if he got hurt again next year. There's no way anyone would pick him up at that point. The guy had a 9-week stretch from the end of last season to the start of this season where he was just lights out awesome, but his body can't hold up. He's had a broken leg, a broken neck, now a torn ACL. I mean, that's concerning for sure. So I don't know what to make of that. I hope the best for him. He's got all the skills if he can just have his body hold up, but we know that sometimes that's just the problem for some of these elite athletes. So OU will have to figure that out, and in the meantime, Trey Sermon is going to be the lead back, at least for now. Let's see here. The OU star of the game, other than Kyler Murray, was Marquise Hollywood Brown, going 12 targets, 9 receptions for 191 yards, over 21 in average, and a touchdown with a long of 75. Now, at the end of the first quarter yesterday, he had 139 yards and a touchdown. So he was tearing it up. He was absolutely tearing them up. Yes, to your question, Adam, yes, Sutton got hurt. Looked like he got knocked out on the play. Looked like he took a real shot to the head and neck. And they called it a fumble on the play, but on review, his knee went down before the ball fell out. But that was scary, too, because he went just completely limp and motionless. And, yeah, they helped him to the sideline there. I have not heard the update on his status at this point. But if that's the case, running back was one of OU's deepest positions, and now, we already know they lost one for the year. If they lost another one for at least some time, if not the whole year, then they're suddenly going to be running a little bit, in terms of at least recognizable name value, they're going to be running a little bit shallow at that position, and that's a really critical position to what they do offensively. But yeah, Marquise Brown, he tore it up. What impresses me so far from what I've seen from Brown this year, last year he busted out as one of the nation's best deep threats in the Bedlam game, so late in the year. This year he looks like a much more complete wide receiver to me. He's not afraid to go over the middle. He's making all the shorter gains as well. He's clearly Kyler Murray's favorite target right now. I mean, if it's 3rd and 5, Kyler Murray is looking for Hollywood Brown. And, you know, Hollywood Brown's another small dude. He's probably 5'9". It's another small dude, but he's got blazing speed. So it'll be really interesting to see what his future holds, both for the rest of his career at Oklahoma and beyond. But, man, I think he's one of those guys, because he was a junior college transfer, so he's one of those guys who could leave after this year if he wanted, even though he's only been at OU 2 years. So interesting to see, but him and Kyler Murray together is just a deadly 1-2 punch. That 75-yard touchdown catch, oh my God. It's not even fair how ridiculously tough that is to guard. I mean, Kyler threw a dime, and Hollywood blazed past 2 Iowa State players to get it. So if you hit that deep ball once or twice a game, you're giving yourself 14 free points that the other team really can't guard against. The question for Oklahoma is going to be the defense. Those are the cracks that showed in the armor yesterday, and it reminded me way too much of last season. Oklahoma, yes, Iowa State is well coached. Yes, they are feisty, and they are a good team. But OU gave up big play after big play. Not just Hakeem Nicks torched them. So let me touch on some of the Iowa State stats here. Backup quarterback Zeb Nolan goes for 360 yards on 25 of 36, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He was only sacked once. That's another red flag to me. But more so than that, you let a backup quarterback throw for over 350 on you. You held Montgomery 21 rushes for 82 yards, so less than 4 on average, and a touchdown. So he was tough, but even though he ran tough and angry, and he's a talented back, an NFL quality back, I think, he didn't burn you. It was the backup quarterback and Hakeem Butler. Butler, 5 catches for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns with a long of 57. And that 57-yarder, the dude manhandled and broke like 4 Sooner tackles who just were flying at him and just like slipping off him like silk as he just ran on by. It was insane how, I mean, that was a man catch there. So that was impressive to say the least. But I don't know what to make of the OU defense. These concerns are very apparent at this point, I would say. It's far too reminiscent of last year's team. They have a much better team. That's the thing. Their defense is much better than it was last year as far as the talent. But this is the Mike Stoops issue that we keep screaming about. RJ Young, occasional guy we work with for the channel here, He's been screaming about firing Mike Stoops for years, and Stoops has as good of a crop of defensive recruits as he's had in some time, and games like yesterday showing up, even when it's a game like last year, OU slept on Iowa State. They did not sleep on them this year. They knew it was a revenge game, and they still let them hang around the whole time. I mean, they win by 10, and it was a 1-possession game for much of the second half. That's concerning for OU for sure. And they're going to have to figure that out. If the defense can improve and, you know, next week they face a perennial running team in Army who will run the ball 90% of the time, as long as they can guard against the run, they'll be okay. But it's interesting to me to see how this young defense responds, because they have a lot to improve on when they look back at the tape of this game. So let me hit on some of the questions here that I saw, some of the comments before I jump into the Texas game. Let's see. Honcho. Let's see. Young QB looks like Charles Thompson from my hometown. Sooners will be in the playoff. Young defense is better, DDP. They will be a contender for the playoffs, but they got to avoid trip-ups. And as much as I love this young defense, I really want to see how they can respond as the season wears on, because yesterday, even though it was a much better caliber of player, like as far as what they trotted out there, it still had glaring faults and flaws as far as how they executed, and that's always going to lead to trouble, especially when you get into the teams that are more talented offensively, such as an Oklahoma State or a Texas Tech, or hell even Baylor nearly tripped up OU last year, so you always got to watch for that. Let's see. Norman, really. Lawton, Ike, Cameron University, bro, sister. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I'm from Norman, Oklahoma originally. I've spent half my life here in the Dallas area of Texas, though. But yeah, most all my family's still there. Baker is legit. He is. I think he will be a very... I mean, I worry about where he went, but I think he can be a good NFL quarterback for sure. Proctor, how is the Oklahoma running back doing? I got that one. Oh, do you think the West Virginia game being canceled and it's not going to be rescheduled will hurt Greer's Heisman chances due to the numbers not being as good as... That's actually a very good point, or a very good question, Adam. Yeah, if the game's not being rescheduled, I'm quite certain some of the voters will look at that and say it's less of a sample size. You know how we saw with, and I don't mean to point this back to Adrian Peterson and OU, but when Adrian Peterson was a freshman, when he didn't win the Heisman, he was runner-up to Matt Leinart. He missed one game that year, and one of the main things we heard from the people who said, oh, it was a toss-up for me, what they pointed to was that he didn't play in every game. That's interesting to me, because if that's the case, how are they going to compare this for Greer if Greer continues at this tear and he's got the numbers? Are they going to look at it and say, well, he played one less game. It's not that he missed the game, so maybe it won't weigh against him, but that's a very good question. It could certainly factor into some of their thoughts, but as exciting as it is to see what he's doing, and I know people are trying to draw comparisons with his numbers and Baker's last year, and that's fine. That's understandable, especially from West Virginia fan base and everything like that. Who, you know, this is all new for them as far as having a guy in that discussion of the Heisman thing. Not new, because you guys have had a couple guys like that before, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's sudden and it's refreshing in this regard. It's been a minute. So it could, but I hope for his sake not. I would say don't get too wrapped up in the Heisman talk, though, until you get to at least the midway point of the season. Really, week 7, week 8 would be a better stretch to start thinking about that, but we'll see. Can't catch him. Good to see you, Prospect. What's up, Kent? Texas finally won a big game. Funny, it's the program's 900th win. Their 800th win was also against USC. That is an interesting fun fact. I did not know that. Was that the 05 Rose Bowl then? Very interesting. The more you know. So let's talk about that Texas game. Texas, talking about revenge games. Texas gets big revenge on USC, this time in Austin, facing the number 22, not that good of a USC team, the number 22 Trojans. Texas wins 37-14, and man, I don't want to rain on Texas's parade. I don't think this is a great USC team. Like, I just don't, from what I saw in that game. Now, I admit I didn't watch the full game, but I did watch a pretty good chunk, and I was not super impressed with the USC team in particular. But hey, nevertheless, it's a great win for Texas, and it's one of those resume wins just because of USC's history and clout that it will somewhat change the perception. You know, that first loss to Maryland this year, the second loss to them, but first game of the year, that really hurt Texas in the perception of Tom Herman and what they're doing. So to get a win like this, and then you eked out a win against Tulsa last week, that was bad. This is your first really good statement win of the year if you're a Longhorn fan. And to me, it's the first real sign that things might be turning around in the Tom and Herman era. Just because it's, you know, last year they had a lot of games, they played a lot of teams tough, and they hung around, but they couldn't quite beat those top-end teams. They lost to USC when they could have won. They lost to Oklahoma when they could have won. And it held them back a little bit. So when this year started off so rough, I admit I was among the people who was like, ugh, is Herman the guy? I mean, maybe he is. I think he can be, but this is alarming. For them to get this win and to do it in pretty convincing fashion, I think says a lot about the improvement that they've made. And when you got a team and a bunch of players who haven't hated losing, for who losing has kind of become, it's lost the sting because it's been so regular for them in recent years, it changes your perception. So you got to get them angry and you got to get them hell-bent on not losing. And to their credit, maybe that's starting to finally turn around, because even when adversity did rear its head a couple times yesterday, they were quick to respond. So good job for Texas there. Good win. Could be a win that starts to turn them around to get them back in a positive direction. So the USC quarterback, Daniels, goes 30 for 48, 322 yards. That's not bad, although throwing 50 times is a little bit concerning. He only averaged 6.7 yards an attempt, though, had no touchdowns, and he was picked. So Texas does a really good job in that game, keeping him under control. The rushing game for USC is what was trash. For Carr, 7 attempts for 10 yards. Ware, 4 for 8. And then Malpai? I didn't quite catch how to say his name in the game, but 2 for 3. He had a touchdown at least, but good God, the USC rushing game was not good. And that is majorly concerning for them going forward. But, it could be a credit to Texas as well. The one guy who really showed out for USC was receiver St. Brown. I think Anthony St. Brown's his name. 12 targets, 9 catches, 168, and a long of 53. No touchdowns, but he was the kind of standout I noticed for USC. On the Texas side, you got Ellinger going 15 of 33 for 223. Again, only 6.8 in average, but 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's good. The 15 for 33 is not great, because that's, hovering just over 50% really. And then to 223, that's kind of low as well. But what I liked about that is he protected the ball better, and he let the team around him kind of carry the load if he wasn't able to do it all himself. Watson goes 18 carries for 72 yards. Another back goes 12 for 57. So really, really good showing from them there. They still got their couple wide receivers who showed out with nice games, nothing huge or monstrous, but it allowed them to do a little something. And like I said, this is a good win for Texas, 37-14. Next week, Texas has, I see there in the comments, talk of TCU. They have TCU next week, Texas versus TCU, so that'll be something to keep an eye on as well. Just hoping Tom Herman can use this. I know USC is not that good, but I'm hoping they start to believe. Like I said, I think this will be a good win for Texas that might start to kind of right that ship a little bit. Let me see. So, Tierpala. Hopefully I'm saying that borderline right. Saying TCU should have won. Yeah, TCU, man, that was the big game for the Big 12 as far as, Texas USC was big because of both programs, but from a matchup thing, it was, of course, number 4 Ohio State versus number 15 TCU in Fort Worth. That was the big game for the Big 12. Would have been a huge statement win for TCU if they had gotten it. And the thing is, I feel like TCU really controlled a lot of that game. Like, I know they lost 40-28, but the game had much more the feeling of, I feel like TCU had that game there to win. And the fact that they didn't is disappointing. I know Ala saying here Ohio State was holding a lot. No calls for the Frogs. Big 12 looking low this year. No BCS this year. Well, it's not even... Yeah, I don't know, man. There's still a chance for the Big 12 to get a representative there. I think as a whole, the conference isn't super strong this year. But I do think that Oklahoma will have a chance if their defense can improve and just not have many ducks kind of like they did yesterday. And I still think West Virginia is a real threat for the Big 12. But they're my dark horse. Now, saying that they're a playoff dark horse, they got to go unbeaten to do that, whereas an Oklahoma might be able to sustain a single loss. But West Virginia could make some noise this year and catch a lot of people sleeping. Now, obviously, as Adam Proctor pointed out to me earlier, their game was canceled because of the hurricane, so that's going to shape up their season a little differently. And honestly, in some regard, it might help them fly under the radar even longer now, because now it's fewer games. They've been out of the public eye for another week, and it might allow them to trip up some more teams to suddenly we get to the midpoint of the season and people are kind of looking at West Virginia like, damn, what are they rated? Like, what are they ranked? Holy crap, they look really good. And Greer is having a Heisman caliber season so far. Jesse Ortiz, big win for Tom Herman. Yes, it is. His first really big win, I feel. But yes, in the Ohio State TCU game, that is a very disappointing situation for them. I don't think Ohio State's that great. I'll be honest. I don't think they're the 4th-rated team in the country, like that they should be. I think that's more reputation than anything holding them there. And we'll see. I even with them having a little bit of a weak schedule this year, I get the feeling someone's going to expose them at some point, even with their conference not looking that great this year. Wisconsin got tripped up by, what was it, BYU? So, yeah, not a great conference for them this year either, but we'll see. Their reputation is going to give them a lot of leeway, unfortunately. Is Texas quarterback situation an issue with bad recruiting by Charlie Strong or coaching? I don't think it's bad recruiting. I think it's a matter of, well, because Texas has drawn in a lot of really good recruits, even in the Charlie Strong years. They had strong recruiting classes. You could say bad recruiting in the sense that from a star perspective, like, he's a 4-star or he's a 5-star. You could say in that regard it's a good a good recruiting get for them. But you could also say there are a lot of other really good quarterbacks coming out of the state of Texas, and you kind of picked the wrong guy, it looks like. So, interesting for sure to analyze that. I tend to think that even though Texas had good recruiting classes, they've not been good at maximizing what they get out of those. And, that even has gone to Herman a little bit. But now you're seeing in his second year, he's had, his set of guys coming in now. It's one of those things where you got the natural turnover between one coach to another. It takes really 2 to 3 years to get pretty much the full sweep of your guys in there. But we'll see. I tend to think that Charlie Strong was not a good fit for Texas, obviously, not just in how poor they performed, but I think even from a recruiting aspect, even though they got good players, they didn't get players that fit well with what they wanted to do or guys that they intended to use to their strengths necessarily. So it could be that. You could be onto something there. TCU next. Ouch, says Jesse Ortiz. Yep, that's going to be a tough one for you. TCU did control the whole game. I agree. Big money keeps them there, and the Big Ten is really weak. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting season for the Big Ten for sure. A lot of their teams have not looked great, and I think Ohio State's cruising on reputation more than anything. If Texas beats TCU, I think they will start to trust the system finally. They could. I could see that. They got TCU, and then the next week they'll have Oklahoma. So if they somehow got past TCU and Oklahoma, then that's when you can start the whispers of Texas might be back. Because I know Longhorn fans are very eager to start saying that every time they get a win, but you gotta string it together and keep the momentum going. So I'm hesitant to say that, and that's why when some people picked Texas to win the national championship this year, I was just like, come on, guys, really? Like they'll be better, but they're not going to be that. To be honest, I was still willing to give you the Maryland game, but that didn't work out. So we'll see. I'm sure Oklahoma will disappoint me at some point with some midseason trip up or something. Can't catch them. I already got your question there. My Cowboy family, what's up, prospect? So ready to go for tonight's game. I am absolutely ready for the game tonight, man. I will not be doing the watch party this week, but I'm going to be at home. I'm going to be taking notes, and I'm going to analyze the shit out of this game for the Cowboys-Giants so that I can bring the best content and best analysis that I can to tomorrow night's show with probably Law, but definitely should have like Big Game James. We'll see how that stacks up. But yeah, I'm ready for tonight's game for sure. I think they should have given Strong time. He was starting over. I mean, he had a few years, and the fact is, it takes time to fix the kind of country club atmosphere that Texas had. I give you that. But I think he also had the Kansas game was always going to kill him. But even before the Kansas game, it was kind of crumbling around him. And, how many seasons did they have 6 wins or something to that effect? So I don't know. I think they needed to move on from Strong, and I think Herman is absolutely an upgrade from Strong. We'll see how it shapes up, but I think they made the right call, honestly. Austin takes a special person to be focused. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Texas makes me more nervous than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. All right. I like the expression. But, all right, so let me touch on some of the other results here from the Big 12. I'm not going to go as in-depth on them because I already touched on the 3 main games that I wanted to talk about. Also in the Big 12, we have Texas Tech beating Houston 63-49 in Lubbock. High-scoring game, but at the same time, Houston hasn't been what they were since Herman left, but they've still got some pieces there that Herman had brought in. So they're not great by any means, but still a nice win to be able to put 63 on them. And had the game been in Houston, it might have been the other way around, but we'll never know in that regard. Kansas State gets a big win over UTSA. I would hope so. Baylor loses to Duke at Baylor 40-27. Baylor, man, they're going to be in shambles for a little while, I feel. Not just the stigma and not just how hurt they were from the investigation stuff and the scholarships and all that, the players that they lost. They're going to have to figure out how to rebuild that thing, and I don't know if or when they're going to get back to anything like we saw with Art Briles. Guns up, but Houston is a really, really good team. They certainly have some really, really good players, but they are unranked, and even if they got a monster 5-star talent in there who wrecked OU 2 years ago, I recall, they're a good team. They dropped 49, but I don't know. I'm curious. I was actually curious of Houston being one of the teams the Big 12 looked to add when they flirted with the idea of going back to 12 from 10 recently. I thought Houston would have been a good fit, honestly. Oklahoma State at home beats Boise State, number 21 Boise State, mind you, 44-21. This is a really good win for Oklahoma State, I feel. I mean, Boise State, I know it's not the magic days of Boise State that we saw a while back, but it's not like the Boise State team in 2005 that beat Oklahoma, but at the same time, it's a good team. Boise State tends to be a pretty disciplined, good team, so for Oklahoma State to beat them more than double their score, pretty nice, pretty solid. Yeah, Adam, about to get to that one. It's not even Big 12, but because of proximity, feels appropriate. And then Kansas gets a 55-14 win. Kansas, baby, 2 straight wins. That's what's up. That is what's up, Kansas. Turning the thing around, turning this ship around. But yeah, Adam Proctor. So let's talk about that. Again, not Big 12, but interesting nevertheless. Conference USA's very own University of North Texas, the Eagles. They go in. The Mean Green is the nickname, but they got the Eagle mascot thing. They go to Arkansas, and they put a beating, just a savage beating on Arkansas. 44-17 in Fayetteville. Holy crap. Now, North Texas is now 3-0, so hey, there's something. I saw their quarterback, Fine. He's actually from some tiny town called Peggs, Oklahoma, Peggs. That's like less than 1,000 people. His town didn't even have a high school. He had to go to like the next town over to go just to high school. And he went 24-45 for 281 and a touchdown. Only 6.2 average, so he didn't tear him up by any means. But the play of the day, the play everyone's talking about, obviously, is the play you reference. And hey, I think there's actually a Kansas connection there, because I think the guy who had the return the year before was at Kansas, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, with UNT already up 7-0, Arkansas forced a punt. UNT guy fields it at the 10. Now, it sounds like he shouts fair catch, but he never makes the overhead motion, the call for fair catch. And here's the other important thing. I'm trying to find some kind of prop. Water bottle works. So he catches it, and he doesn't just stand there. Everyone on Arkansas starts just slowing to a walk, and he's just kind of casually walking. But the second he catches the ball, he's moving, but it's at like a walking pace, and it's after he's made some kind of vocal inflection that people thought he called a fair catch. He takes like 4 or 5 steps, and then before the ref can blow the play dead, he just takes off down the sideline with an army of blockers. No one on Arkansas looked like they had any idea what was happening. He goes 90 yards to the house, puts them up 14-0, and it only got worse from there for Arkansas, man. 44-17 to a Conference USA team. Now, I know Arkansas brought in the head coach from, I believe it was SMU. So I think he can be good. But man, oh man, are they going to have to struggle early on with him. Because right now, until he gets his system implemented and gets his kind of recruits that he wants to really work toward his system, they're going to be like a Frankenstein's monster of their old identity and what he's trying to build. And that's sometimes the struggle you have when you try and go from one extreme to another in terms of philosophy. But yeah, Arkansas, man, that is a humiliating loss for them. For UNT, I think I heard it was their first win versus an SEC school since 1975 when they beat, I think it was Tennessee. And it was their first win over a Power 5 school on the road since like 2009. So I can't remember who that example was in 2009 for the record. But yeah, man, this is a huge win for UNT. But here's the shame for UNT. They're going to be favored the rest of the way for their season. Now, they do have FAU in their conference, and last year in the conference title game, FAU smacked them around. But I don't know what FAU is right now. They didn't look like anything to be alarmed with when they faced Oklahoma in week 1. So we'll see what they are. But at the same time, man, if you're a good coach and you're with a small school, as soon as you make any noise, someone's going to scoop you up. You're going to have, like, Texas Tech, for example. Because I got to think Cliff Kingsbury is eventually going to fall through with his just mediocrity. If that happens, then maybe they look at the UNT guy and say, hey, look what he did. He beat an SEC team on the road with vastly inferior talent. UNT, in recent history, they've had seasons where they're like a bottom 10 D1 school in total defense, where like out of 130 teams, they're like 127 or something like that. I mean, just abysmally bad. So this head coach has, turned water into wine for them effectively. And he's got something going, which unfortunately for UNT tells me he's not going to be long for that program. And he'll probably be scooped up either after this year or at most one more year down the road if he stays around that long. Let's see. UNT beat Arkansas. Wow. Yes, they did. They absolutely did, man. Hope Major does well at Houston. Yeah, that is their new head coach, right? Yeah, Major Applewhite. I'm indifferent towards it, but like I said, I'm interested in the prospect of adding Houston eventually to the Big 12 if they ever do look to expand again. And if that's the case, then yeah, you want Houston to be good so that it's a valid add and something that would help the conference. North Texas kickoff return was ridiculous. I think it was a punt return. But yes, it absolutely was ridiculous. Kent Ketchum, OSU has to beat OU, otherwise it's whatever season. Yes, Oklahoma State, they have to. And the game is in Norman this time, so they're going to have a tough challenge to do that. But they've got a deadly offense. Every year they have a deadly offense. And they got Justice Hill, so I think they have the best, especially now that Rodney Anderson is out for the year for OU. I think they being Oklahoma State, have the best running back in the country. So that's going to be a real challenge for OU to deal with when we get to that point. But OU always schedules them for very late in the year, so can't look that far ahead yet. Who is the UNT coach? Good question. Let me look that up real quick. Don't fail me, Google. Seth Luttrell. Believe so. Seth Luttrell. Yep. Looks like it. So yeah, that'll be interesting. How long they can hold on to Latrell in that regard. But Rodney Anderson is made of glass. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say otherwise. Unfortunately, I mean he carried the load for about a 9-week stretch between the Kansas State game last year and into the first quarter of the second game of this year. So he had about a 9 or 10 week stretch there where even going against monsters like Georgia has, he still was, taking the physical beating and just going and going and going. I mean, he had 200 rushing yards against Georgia in the Rose Bowl. So the dude tears it up. He just had an unfortunate thing in this case where his leg was kind of planted. His cleat was down in the ground, the spike down in the ground, and he just got kind of hit in an awkward way that just kind of wrenched his leg just right to tear the ACL, it sounds like. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and I don't know anything yet about Marcellus Sutton. He's a senior for OU. He also took a scary, scary hit at Iowa State, and looked like it went to like the back of the neck with his head down because as he was going down. And he didn't fumble the ball. His knee went down before he fumbled, but he went just completely limp. And I was afraid that he was going to be stretchered out, but after a few minutes, he was helped to the sideline, guided. 3 years injured, yes, 3 and 4. Broken leg, broken neck, and now a torn ACL after. And in the middle of all that, he had, an 8-week stretch to close out the end of last season, like 1,600 total yards. So he beasted in the middle of it. But yes, you're right. And if he's smart, he'll go pro now. He won't try and come back to OU for one more year because at least he can try and get drafted and get some kind of payday because I don't think he's going to be long for the game of football, unfortunately. Katy, Texas's own, I believe. So that's probably going to wrap up my time for this show, guys. I've been going a little over 40 minutes, and I've got Mavs fast break in less than an hour. So if you want to talk to Mavericks basketball with me, I will be here shortly, here within the hour, talking a little bit about Luka Doncic, what Dirk Nowitzki had to say about him, just from his impressions so far. Same with Harrison Barnes, where Dennis Smith Jr. rates in the top NBA players under 25, those lists and all that, and taking your questions. So until then, guys, hang tight. I'll be back. And just remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.